So Andrew Richie with me here talking about, as a fellow Oxygen Advantage instructor, some of the things that we've learned along the way, some of the pitfalls we've made and mistakes we've made, and actually sharing a little bit about where we started with things like the BOLT score, which is the body oxygen level test from the Oxygen Advantage, giving us a level of understanding of our functional breathing habits and our carbon dioxide tolerance. I want to share a little bit about how each of us started with our with that test, with that BOLT score, things we did and mistakes we made, so that you can learn from those as well. And then also that what does it look like now, and what are the sort of the things that have helped. So Andrew, what was your or people have heard me explain and talk about the BOLT score. It's good to hear just a different voice, potentially a different take.
Yeah, of course.
It's a standardized thing. I've been sharing what I do every morning just as a bit of an accountability. And I love the feedback it gives me on how I feel, how well I've slept, and all these other factors that if I'm not acutely aware of it, I'm not that much of a touchy-feely type of guy. Like, it just gets swept under the carpet. I don't really realize it. So just give people a bit of a heads up on the BOLT score and where you started.
Yeah, no bother. So listen, thanks very much for having me on. I can't wait to talk about all this. It's pretty exciting. With BOLT score, I would probably say back at the start, which is probably about 18 or so months ago, maybe a wee bit thereabouts. I was probably, I don't know, about 12, maybe 14-ish. So probably, I mean, okay, at the start, I guess with these things, it doesn't matter necessarily where you're starting. It's about how we're moving forward. That's the key. I was
How long ago was that?
About 18 months ago, I think, mate, thereabouts. I think I really got into it when my last business shut down because of COVID. So that was when I really started to go kind of in deep with all of this. And it's been an amazing journey. But yeah, with BOLT, just that kind of, I know I'm sure you've explained it loads and loads,
but
just
go through it for people.
Just to kind of calm nasal breath, in, calm nasal breath out, and then just waiting for that kind of first sign or definite desire to kind of breathe after the exhale. And as I was saying, probably about 12 to 14-ish seconds at the start, thereabouts. Sometimes you'd be like, and I'm sure this is for a lot of people starting out, you're like, is that it? Is that it? Where am I here? But I think as long as you, am I doing this right? Am I doing it wrong? Does it feel right? Was it there? Was it not? I always thinking when you're saying to clients as well, if you start breathing, when you finish it, if you're sucking in like that, then you've probably pushed it a wee bit too hard. Sometimes you might
breathing should be normal, completely normal afterwards. And you can see in someone's face, it's like you try to hide it. It's like normal, and then finally take
swallows. Big swallows. So that takes a little bit of time to get used to, but eventually, like I guess anything, the more you do it, then you just start to feel out yourself, and you become a bit more, I guess, kind of mind body aware of it. And now, after kind of hammering it for kind of 18 or so months, probably up to just shy of 30, thereabouts.
Which is a big improvement.
I think so, yeah.
See that time frame. It sort of Patrick quotes in the instructor training that we can expect a sort of 2 to 3 second improvement each week. And often, like, initially when you haven't done like anything, like any sort of forms of training or anything, at the beginning we make a lot of progress because you've never really done any of the exercises before, so you see a lot of improvement. But it's just not it just does not go straight up. Or my experience with myself and clients I've worked with, it's sort of over a period of time, like a year or 18 months or 2 years. You started down here and now we're up here, but to get there it was a very zigzaggy
massive
line.
There's so much that plays into it. And I did find a lot. If you get nervous about the fact that you're about to do it, thinking that your score should be higher, it is huge. And I think it's so important to practice and just relaxing when you're doing it, making sure that you're in a nice, calm, relaxed place, doing it probably at the same time regularly, so there's not so many different environmental factors that have impacted it. But I would get nervous, especially when you're like finishing your instructor training off and you're hammering it all the time, you're talking about it, you're like, right, this has got to be good, this is going to have to be good. And then it's not where you thought it was. You're like, damn, and then like 3 days, you're freaking out about it. That's
and that
such a
shows
huge factor. But yeah, exactly.
that shows
Exactly.
that like, how we think and our emotions are affecting literally
the whole picture.
How we breathe, and not just how we breathe. It's affecting like your desire to breathe quicker straight away. So like, yeah, our thoughts are impacting deeply inside of us, like what is going on, that we're just, well, I was just not aware at all of that. And so one thing that it's taught me is that, definitely. So give us a bit of an insight for you, and then I'll probably share as well. When you started, you know, what sort of things did you like? You know, for me, I was like the breath holding. I'm like, yeah, I'm in on that, and like I just went, yeah, I went, but I did it badly. I'll explain that in a second. But yeah, where you go first?
For me, I'd always liked running, and I picked up in a book before the Oxygen Advantage to running. Let the nose dictate how fast or slow you go. So that's what kind of led me down this road a wee bit, because I was like running on the hill. So I kept up doing a lot of that and just trying to focus on nasal breathing during exercise as much as possible. And it kind of worked with the running quite well. And then that really built it. I was doing a lot of breath holding, just walking, just paces. You get a wee route, don't you? Sometimes you see your wee thing you do. This is where I'm doing this, and I get a good
and how many paces could you do at the start?
Oh man, like back then, like 20, maybe like 20 would be a right push, and I don't think I would be breathing normally. When I was finishing, but I guess now you're like 110, 115. It dips like if I'm consistently going at it every single day, sometimes a couple of times a day, then it'll be, you can maybe push that a wee bit. I'm not always doing that. Like sometimes I'll more recently kind of focusing on slightly different things. So I'll maybe not be focusing on the massive breath holds all the time to get paces. I'll be looking at it in different ways, especially like maybe some stuff with resistance, squats, presses, these kind of things on the breath hold, just to try and see what's happening with that.
Let's jump in there, because something I've noticed is like the amount of time, because I like to time as well, because obviously depending on how fast you're walking, the paces you get is going to be different. So I will time it as well as count the paces, just so I've got like, something that doesn't change is time. And seeing how long you can do a breath hold for walking compared to like a body weight squat or a lunge, which metabolically I don't feel a body weight squat is, and even doing it like slowly, not even trying to do it fast, doesn't feel particularly harder than like a light jog or something. But the amount of time I can do a breath hold for doing something simple like a bodyweight squat is far less. What's your experience of that?
Far less. I've been doing a bit of work with Gray Cause, a master instructor down in London, and he was talking a lot about doing it, like doing breath holds in positions that you would like potentially normally be doing, like you would normally maybe breath holding, like a big heavy, like a squat or these kind of things. So that was something that I've been pushing at the moment. But yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you more. Like the time that you're able to hold for when you're doing even simple bodyweight movement seems to be significantly less. And also like with resistance, this was like doing farmers carries with big heavy kettlebells. That really drops. The drop on that with SpO2 is really significant, and you really feel it come on very, very fast. But yeah, the body weight stuff is significantly less than pacing. And why is that? I mean, it's not got to be because the CO2 is rising at a much faster rate, so then it's sending the alarm bells ringing a lot quicker than it would be when you're walking, or what else do you think?
Yeah, I just was the fact that I'm not necessarily choosing something that the metabolic demand is that much higher that I think that it would have that. So there's other things that play, like I always find it interesting that ultimately, and I found it a bit strange when I heard Patrick say this in training, that yes, your desire to breathe is your CO2 levels rising. Mm-hmm. But when we do a breath hold, allowing there to be willpower, mm-hmm. the reason that we stop our breath hold, we don't know.
Okay.
they don't know why you actually stop. So it's like when your diaphragm contracts, we know that that's CO2 levels rising, the brain being triggered, right, we need to breathe now. But what, you know, that happens a few times. And when you get to 110 now compared to 20, why did you stop? What was the end reasoning for that? There's a lot of psychological factors involved. And I think that there's one thing that I definitely find with when you go from like a walk into a fast walk into a jog, the rhythmical up and down nature of the jog, more relaxing for that cyclical nature, relaxing for the diaphragm. Because I know when I first started, I couldn't do 20 steps. My bolt score was down at 10, well, barely 10 seconds. I sort of gave myself 10 because I couldn't feel like I could give myself 9. I was like, 9 was supposed to be like less than 10 was like I don't have asthma or anything like that. Like I think a lot of my issues come from the head injury I had in 2013 where I disrupt your breathing patterns. I could I felt like I was going to flipping die at 20. And that diaphragm was just mental, like one, but not like multiple, just that first, then it was like, the panic. And being told to try to relax into that when going through the training, like it took me ages. It probably took me like 6 months to get to the point where I could feel a diaphragm contraction during a breath hold and actually relax. And then at that point, it was like, it started to make sense. But certainly, the start.
It's hard. I've seen.
But I think that bounce. That's what I was on about. I think that running nature.
That just starts to.
It just allows it to like relax. I find, and I think that I'd also be interested to know if I'd only ever from the beginning done breath holds in squats, would I have?
If that would have seemed interesting.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's a pattern. That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, for sure. Because I kind of, I guess, thought about it the way that it was just going to be a CO2 thing that was going to be doing that. But you're quite right. Like the metabolic activity is probably not that much different between the two of them. So why is it so much shorter? But that's a really, interesting. And the mind thing is interesting, and it makes me think back at the start. I was doing some MBTs with a friend of mine who's a climber. That was my kind of work, was ran an outdoor centre for children, and I knew a lot of outdoor instructors. Some of them were climbers, and they had done some pretty mad stuff. You know, he was a pretty full-on climber. He got a lot of soloing where you're climbing without ropes, right? So like it can go very badly if you come off. So there's a mind aspect to that. Anyway, I did his bolt score, and he had never done any kind of oxygen advantage training, right? And I was coming up with all the chat, talking about all this and that, and I was like, hey, let's do your bolt. And he got 40, 41, and I was like, he's at it. There's no way that this is happening. He's just been lightly breathing, because he was a calm, you can imagine the kind of type, I guess. Anyway, I was like, right, let's get outside and we'll do an MBT. Now this, obviously with these things, and I'm sure you say it all the time, and so do I, you're never to push breath holds till they get to a really stressful zone. You know, we don't want to be doing that. However, this chat was very briefed. We explained everything, you know, as you would do in a professional way. However, I went from one end of wherever we were, right? So I went to the fence. That was 80 paces, right? Yeah. I was kind of, by that point, that was a good push for me. So I was like, that's me. This chap who hadn't ever done it before just turned round and then just walked in 80. It must have been there or thereabouts, back to the wall. And he, at the wall, he had pushed himself so far that we had to kind of get him, you know, because he basically pushed it too far, and his body just kind of, he came back round again. But it was quite scary. But I think if the wall hadn't been where it was, he would have still kept going, you know, because he decided that that's where I was going to go. So he was just able to push himself past any kind of alarm signals that and somebody that I think was hammering it fairly regularly and got decent enough like scores, and this guy just blew it all away without at the first time. So is it what's going on there that you're able to do that? And I don't know if that harks back to maybe some stuff that you've done where you've had to push yourself in a situation where if you're falling off a rock, you're going to die. You don't allow yourself, just that mentality can push you straight past it. So yeah, there's so much going on with it. It's all very, very interesting.
Well, interesting that he, the first time we'd ever chatted about this, but just the fact that he then did a box score and got 40 seconds, which is like, A-star grade, shows that he will have been, for whatever reason, a very good breather, very good CO2 tolerance, very good breather. And the longer that's been going on, the better that is. So without thinking about it, he's breathing light, he's breathing slow, he's sleeping, breathing well while he's sleeping, so he's sleeping well. And I think there was something. I used to play professional rugby, retired in 2013 from a head injury. Many people have heard my story before, so I won't bore them with that. But the fact that we know that when we have head injuries and concussions, it alters a part of the brain that is dictating those breathing habits and breathing patterns. And so when I took my bolt score and I was like struggling to get 10 seconds, I was like, well, in the book it says I've probably got severe asthma, and I'm going, I haven't. I thought I was a really fit guy. Now, I used to play professional rugby, so and not knowing at the time the effect on my breathing that the head injury would have had. So I feel very fortunate that I sort of fumbled and stumbled my way into this, but have actually then been able to rehabilitate my brain from a breathing perspective off the back of it. I started with a 10-second box score, 20 trying to do 20 steps. I like that feeling of panic, of suffocation, and feeling like I just haven't got enough oxygen in the system. And one of the big things that helped me get through that was getting the pulse oximeter on, which shows us our oxygen levels in the blood. Getting to that point where I think I'm about to do my 20 steps, and I'm like, that is me, I'm going to die. But Patrick, you telling me I'm going to get to 100 is like, you're crazy, man. Looking at it, and it's at like 96%. Okay, actually, I needed that figure to show me. I'm looking at my finger, I haven't got it on. But I was looking at my finger to show me, and seeing that figure showing me like, no, Jacko, it's fine. Like, you're okay. And the realization that it isn't that oxygen's low, it's that carbon dioxide's go up, allowed me to go through. And I think the other thing was, we had Patrick McKeown on our podcast. I was quite excited, literally. Read the book, reached out to him, and so then be able to speak to him on the podcast was
cool.
Was fantastic. Top guy that literally doesn't say no to anyone. I don't know how he manages to fit everything in his schedule, but speaking to him, and I also mentally wasn't like, it took me a while to, as I mentioned before, it took me a while to be able to relax when that diaphragm contracted. And then a part of that was then being able to know it's okay, it's not oxygen's low, and mentally be able to then push through, get up to 30, get up to 40, get up to 50. And, now being able to go over 100 in a walk to jog, walk to fast, walk to jog to run, doing I think my PB, if I'm keeping score, is like this isn't like a cock off or I'm just trying to give people the context of like where it started and where it can get to. At like 130. And I say this to people when I'm doing my online courses with them, is going, right, 25-second bolt score is equivalent to about 60 steps, which I also timing them is 60 steps tends to be around about 30 seconds. And 30 seconds is that marker where the spleen contracts to release more red blood cells, which is one of the effects of the breath holding, as well as improving our carbon dioxide tolerance. When that rises, when the oxygen drops down low, we get this stimulation from the spleen, which is one of the benefits we're looking for. So like being able to comfortably get to those points is fantastic. Going like just right, I was able to do 100 now. I'm going to trying to just like do more and more and more and more and more. You have to ask yourself the question like, why? We're not trying to be champion free divers. We're trying to improve our breathing so that we can enjoy life better, so we can be calmer, so we can manage stress better. So when we exercise, we can improve. Like I noticed after 6 weeks at the start, I was like, right, nasal breathing. It was just like snot coming down everywhere when I was going out running, and didn't issue with my ego, so I didn't slow things down. I just like tried to carry on running at the pace I was doing. But just doing nasal breathing whilst running, and I was like running once a week, it was back pre-COVID when park runs were on. My 5K PB went from 20 seconds something to 19:15. Like I knocked a minute off my 5K in 6 weeks just by nasal breathing when I was running. And I was like, okay, wow, this is like having quite a big impact. You know, when I did that PB, I was like mouth breathing, like I tried to be nasal breathing at the start, and then I quickly went to like nose in, mouth out, and then I was like towards the halfway through, I'm like mouth in, mouth out. But I was at least trying to breathe bigger breaths with my diaphragm. I didn't exactly know what I was doing at that point, but I was trying to. I remember reading and needing that I needed to not breathe fast, try to breathe slower and bigger, and use the diaphragm. So even when I was breathing through my mouth, I was still trying to do those things. And when I crossed the line and looked at my watch, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It was a course I'd never done before. And I definitely did it. I didn't think I was anywhere near my PB. And I couldn't believe how, because I was a little bit, because I was like, across the line, I was like, before I looked at my watch, I think I'd done, I was like, I could have gone faster. I actually didn't know, because when you do a course for the first time, you don't really know where the end is. So I was like, I could have gone a bit faster. And I looked at my watch, I was like, crikey.
Yeah.
So that was me. I was in on the like nasal breathing then, as well as the fact that like sleeping better, being able to stress better, knowing, like being able to understand like how I'm feeling better.
Focus.
And I think now when I've been consistent with breath holding once a day, breathing light before bed, and then also after training for recovery, if I can get those three things done at the moment, and I tend to do my breath holding in the morning. And I do it in a few different ways now. Like to start with, it was like just get 5 breath holds in the morning. That was what I sort of built into routine. 10 to 15 minutes breathing light before bed, 5 to 10 minutes of breathing light after training. That was sort of like my regime. And when I got better at breath holding very much quicker than I did at the breathing light, and my breath holding increased much better and much faster than my Bolt score did, because I partly was just getting better at breathing through. But that in itself is, every time you're doing those, is to remember that you are elevating those CO2 levels. So you're giving yourself the chance to adapt. And eventually there might be a bit of a lag or delay, but the Bolt score will start to...
Oh, for sure. It'll start to shift.
Like mid 30s now. And I like to...
That's great.
Mix my... mix the breath holding up. So sometimes like just some straight up like walking breath holds, or walking to jogging, those types of sort of like the standard ones we get taught at the beginning, but then building it into like a continuous jog and doing like a few breath holds every minute or so whilst you're on a bit of a run. That's really challenging to start with. So the first time you go, right, I've done 100 paces breath holding, then right now I'm going to jog. I'm jogging for 5 minutes right now. A breath hold at one shot is like 10 strides jogging. It was like, what? And even now is probably like 30 or 40 is a challenge. But playing around with that, playing around with some sprints.
How's that looking?
Interesting.
Do you find that, like, do you feel that you've adapted with running, maybe that you've adapted to being able to do, for your PB that you say you got back at the start where you got like 19, would you say that you'd be able to match that now, just completely going through your nose, or is your mouth cranking open, or are you maybe not bang on but close, so you can go hell for? Because I'm finding that
I can go out now and probably do a 23-minute 5K, like an absolute doddle through my nose. Not even feeling like I'm. So I can't answer. I don't know. I haven't tried to go. I haven't tried to go fast yet. But one thing I would say, and this is important for people to be, one of the things that happens when we are trying to nasal breathe, when we're running at like slightly higher intensities, as we breathe in fast, the nose starts to close in on itself, and that starts to become a problem, because you're like trying to get air in faster than you can physically manage with your nose. And really honing in on and improving, your CO2, the better we improve our CO2 tolerance, the slower we can start to reduce those breathing rates down, so the speed that comes in is less. But the breathing, I definitely feel that the breathing light, so slower, lighter breathing, to be able to manage and then be able to transition that from not just rest into walking into jogging, and building that up progressively. When you can run at an intensity, I explain it to people as like, initially you can start to breathe, you start to get good at breathing light, making your breathing silent when we're sat stationary. But when I'm running, my brain's probably got an association with this running activity that I've done for 38 years of like mouth breathing when we run, because you never used to thought about it. So it has these relationships linked. So just because I'm trying to breathe through my nose when I'm running doesn't mean I'm automatically going to be breathing like deep using my diaphragm and light and slowly. Like I need to give myself the chance to do that in this new like body position and new orientation of running. And being able to like keep the breath slow and light and silent as possible, stationary. And then what is it like just walking around? Can you keep your breathing slower than your walking pace? Because what often happens is, whether it's walking or whether it's like push-ups or whatever exercises you're doing, we end up like getting our breathing to match the speed or of the intensity of things that we're doing. So trying to break that cycle and go, right, I'm going to breathe
slowing that down.
I'm going to breathe slower than the movements that I'm doing.
Takes a while.
When you can start to do that in your running and be able to keep that airflow light coming in for the nose, you're not in that sucking motion. So breathing through the nose rather than with it, in terms of like not sucking up with it. That for me, I think, is where it's like that then starts to become a game changer But also, you've always got the option to go like, okay, the intensity going in and out of the nose is getting too difficult. In through the nose, out through the mouth. But keep the mechanics really good. Keep the breath long, keep them slow. And then eventually you have to in through the mouth, out through the mouth. If you're trying to push on towards a PB, the question is, do you need to push that? Or can, and that's obviously up to the individual.
I found, I couldn't agree with you more on all those points. I found that just the ability to enjoy running, once you start to be able to do what you're saying and like breathe lightly through your nose, it's amazing. Your form's better. You're lifting. You're doing it the way that we're supposed to do it. And you see so many people running like, and you're like, I don't know if this is good for you guys, but like
just running quite slowly.
Breathe half-assed and hard, but that kind of
open mouth,
everybody like 90,
shut your mouth when you're running.
Big time, and you couldn't be more right. That training, what I do, I break it down into the gears. It's like Brian McKenzie and the shift law, they do a lot of this gear talk, and I think Patrick does a bit too, and in XPT they talk about it, but really training the gear so that light nasal, start off slow. And I think it's just people having to go, it's this reality of how far back you have to go before you can start going forward again, Sorry, something's popped up there. But like, once you can train those gears and you can move slowly, and you're not trying to suck in too hard from the nose. You're allowing the diaphragm to do the work, and it's simply just passing kind of through the nose, and the diaphragm's what's getting stronger. Then as you build up the intensity, it's just the pump's getting a little bit stronger, and then you can really, again, like, it doesn't take ages. We're talking like just over a year here, but you can match or be faster than what you were for me personally, faster now going through my nose than I was going through my mouth over like kind of probably longer distances. And then at the end, you can open up your mouth and let the horse out the barn. But the real thing is like just trying to go slow, enjoy yourself. Like I hear people talk this couch to 5K thing, so great, and you get up, you're walking, and then you're running, you're walking, and you're running. But it's like, you don't need the app. You can do it with your nose, and just moving through, right, okay, I need to breathe out my mouth now, right, dial it back down and just walk. You've got people at couch to 5K is a huge thing, and everyone's at it, but they're following the app to do it. And it's like, you don't need to follow the app, man. You just need to follow your nose, and your nose will do it, and then it will build, and then you will be able to go, not just like faster, because it's like sometimes who cares? It's like, just go out and enjoy what you're doing. And running is one of these things. I know for me as a parent, that was when I found it, because I was like, I can never meet these class times. I was trying to do Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and all these things, but it was like Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. I couldn't make the times, but running, I could, And for me, and different people with different things, but I just thought it's quite an easy one to get you out. And if you just follow your nose at the start and do exactly like you're saying, like a little bit of breathe light, and then a little bit of breath holding during the day, and then you go out for your run, and once you open your mouth, or your mouth is open, just slow down until you're breathing through your nose, and just bring the elements of breathe light and into the run, and you'll go gear 1, you move up faster, you go gear 2, so it's a bit more of a power nasal, but you're not necessarily dumping all the CO2 because you don't want to, because you want that on to get the oxygen off the blood. Gear 3, kind of hard, almost hard as you can go nasally, but I think if you build it up slowly, you won't need to be sucking as hard to shut your nose down because your diaphragm's strong. The mask can be pretty good for that too. I certainly think I was doing a kind of block on the mask for a while, and I broke it, so the resistance was on full bore because I just had to tape it up with a bit of sellotape because I was like, I don't have the slider anymore, so it was just full whack. And so I was just using that and then doing holds, and that's quite extreme, you know. You don't need to do that, but that trains your diaphragm. That trains your diaphragm big time.
I was like, right, minimum, maximum. I was like, max. Like, at this point, my bolt score was about 18 seconds. I wasn't even, and I was like, that is just my. I would like to say, at the moment, I only ever use it on minimum when I'm being sensible with it, and I do. Something that I quite like is we've got like a little loop that I do one loop with it on, then take it off for your second loop. Feel like an absolute machine. I really like it. It's a really nice thing to finish on what you said of like be able to just go out and enjoy that run, because I think when you get to that point where it's like it's nice and light nasally, the feeling and sensation I get and that I say to people is like just a comfortable level. You just feel like you can go forever. Because you don't feel like you're running out of oxygen, and so to be, I think that's a great point to finish on. Like, be able to go out and just enjoy that fun.
I think you won't get injured. So many runners get injured because they just pump it too hard too quick because they're doing too much of what their body's able to do. You know, especially if you're not on your feet a lot. You jump out and say, "Now I'm going to try and hammer a 10K," and I know I'm trying to get under 45 or what everybody's doing. But it's like, well, you're not really getting out that much and moving that much. You go and you hammer to do that, you're going to get injured or you're not going to enjoy it. Whereas if you just slow it down, listen to the nose. And if you listen to the nose, man, then things tend to be great. And it's not just the run; it's the cognitive and just psychophysiological benefits to just breathing like that as regularly as possible is just phenomenal. And it doesn't take forever, and it's relatively easy to bring it into your day to day. It's so amazing for so many things. But yeah, you know, so that's a great way to do it, I guess.
No, thank you, Andrew, for joining us. And if you have any questions or have any comments, put them in the comments below here, and we look forward to hearing from you. Where's the best place if people have got any questions that they want to direct to? Email or website?
I'm on Performance Breathworks is my website, and it's just Performance Breathworks, _breathworks at outlook.com, and Instagram's Performance Breathworks as well. So that's where all my stuff is. If anybody wants to check any of that out, please let me know.
Perfect. I'll put links in the description below for that as well, so you can check that out. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, then make sure you hit subscribe, wherever that is, if you haven't yet. And we look forward to seeing you in the next video.